She was 7 months pregnant when her husband looked her in the eyes and said 5 words that would change everything. Get out of the bed, Carolyn. Not because of a medical emergency, not because she was being transferred to a better room, but because his mistress needed a place to rest her sprained wrist. What Caroline did not know in that moment was that her husband had taken out $4 million in life insurance on her just 6 months earlier. What she did not know was that her father, one of the most respected surgeons in the country, had been quietly gathering evidence of her husband's betrayal for months. And what nobody could have predicted was that in just 3 weeks, that same cheating husband would collapse from a massive heart attack. And the only surgeon who could save his life would be the father of the woman he had just destroyed. What happens next will leave you speechless. This is a story of betrayal, karma, and the sweetest revenge a woman never had to lift a finger to get. Get out of the bed, Carolyn. The words sliced through the dim hospital room like a scalpel. Carolyn Whitmore blinked twice. The heart monitor beside her beeped its steady rhythm. The fluorescent lights hummed their eternal song above her head. The antiseptic smell of the hospital filled her nostrils. She must have misheard him. Carolyn shifted against the thin hospital pillow, wincing as the movement sent a dull ache through her lower back. She was 7 months pregnant. Her blood pressure had spiked dangerously at 6:15 that morning. 160 over 105. The numbers had terrified Dr. Cross. The preeclampsia diagnosis had come swift and certain. Complete bed rest, constant monitoring. No exceptions. The baby kicked against her ribs. A strong kick. A fighter's kick. "Derek," Carolyn said slowly, her voice hoarse from the medications they had given her. "What did you just say to me?" Her husband stood in the doorway. His charcoal gray suit was immaculate. His silk tie was loosened at the collar. His jaw was set in that familiar tight line she had learned to dread over the past year. But he was not alone. Behind him, a woman sat in a wheelchair. Brittany Cole, 26 years old, Derek's executive assistant for the past 2 years. Her honey blonde hair was perfectly styled despite the late hour. Her makeup was flawless. She wore a cashmere sweater that Caroline recognized. She had admired it in a store window 3 months ago. Derek had said it was too expensive. Brittany held her bandaged wrist against her chest. A minor car accident, according to the nurse who had wheeled her past the station. A sprained wrist, outpatient procedure. Nothing serious, nothing that required a private room. "She needs the private room," Derek said. His voice was flat, businesslike, the same tone he used when firing employees or negotiating contracts. "The shared rooms are too noisy. Brittany was in a car accident. She is in pain. She needs rest, you understand." Carolyn stared at her husband of 4 years, the father of the child growing inside her, the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health. The man who had cried when she showed him the positive pregnancy test 8 months ago. "I have pregnancy complications," Carolyn said. Each word felt heavy, foreign. "My blood pressure is dangerously high. Dr. Cross said any stress could trigger a crisis. She said I cannot be moved." Derek stepped closer. His cologne filled the room. Sandalwood and cedar, the same cologne she had bought him for their 4th anniversary last March. She had saved for 3 months to afford it. "You are being dramatic," he said. The words landed like slaps. "The nurses told me your numbers stabilized an hour ago. You are fine. Brittany is in real pain. A sprained wrist hurts more than you think." The baby kicked again, hard this time, insistent, as if their daughter could sense the danger her mother could not yet fully comprehend. "Derek, please." Carolyn heard the tremor in her own voice, hated it. "I need to stay here. The baby needs me to stay here." Dr. Cross was very clear about the risks. Brittany shifted in her wheelchair. She still would not meet Caroline's eyes. She kept examining her manicured nails instead. French tips, perfect ovals, not a single chip. "Derek, maybe we should just find another room," Brittany said. Her voice was thin, whiny, childlike. "This is getting awkward. I do not want to cause problems." "Nein." Derek's hand tightened on the wheelchair handles. His knuckles went white. "My wife is leaving. She can sit in the waiting room. She can find a chair in the hallway. It is not a big deal." Not a big deal. Carolyn felt something cold spread through her chest. Ice water in her veins. She had felt this sensation before. Small moments over the past year. Times when Derek dismissed her concerns about his late nights at the office. Times when he made her feel foolish for asking why he smelled like perfume that was not hers. Times when she wondered if she was losing her mind. But this was different. This was her hospital bed, her pregnancy, her child, her life. "Who is she to you?" Caroline asked quietly. The question hung in the sterile air between them. Derek's expression flickered. Just for a fraction of a second, a shadow passed behind his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by irritation. "She is my assistant. I told you that 100 times. She works for me. She was in an accident. I am being a good employer. Your assistant needed you to bring her to my hospital room. Your assistant needed my bed. Your assistant could not find anywhere else in this entire hospital to rest her sprained wrist." Caroline, stop making this into something it is not. You always do this. You always twist everything. The door opened behind them. Dr. Evelyn Cross walked in carrying a medical chart. She was 45 years old with kind eyes and steady hands. She had been Caroline's obstetrician for 6 years. She had delivered good news and bad news. She had held Caroline's hand through 2 miscarriages before this pregnancy finally held. Dr. Cross stopped mid-step. Her eyes moved from Caroline in the bed to Derek standing over her to Brittany in the wheelchair by the door. The silence stretched for 3 long seconds. 4, 5. "What exactly is happening here?" Cross asked. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were not. Derek's demeanor shifted immediately. Smooth now, reasonable, charming, the voice that had convinced investors to trust him with millions. The voice that had convinced Caroline to say yes when he proposed on that rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. "Just a private conversation between me and my wife," he said. "Nothing to worry about, doctor. Family matters. You understand." Dr. Cross set down her chart on the side table. She did not look away from Derek. "Mrs. Whitmore is my patient. She is being monitored for severe preeclampsia. Her condition could deteriorate at any moment. She is not going anywhere tonight. I appreciate your professional concern, doctor. But this is a family matter. My wife and I will handle it privately." "A family matter." Dr. Cross's gaze moved to Brittany, took in the expensive cashmere sweater, the perfect manicure, the way she angled her body toward Derek. "I see." Caroline's hands trembled beneath the thin hospital blanket. She pressed them flat against the mattresses to hide the shaking. She could feel everyone looking at her, waiting, expecting her to do something, say something. "It is fine," Caroline heard herself say. The words came from somewhere far away. "I will move. It is fine." "Caroline, absolutely not." Dr. Cross stepped forward, positioning herself between the bed and Derek. "Your blood pressure readings from this morning were dangerously high. Moving you could trigger a hypertensive crisis. You could have a stroke. The baby could be compromised." "I said I will move." Caroline pushed back the blanket. Her legs felt like water beneath her. The monitor alarm began to sound. Shrill, insistent. Her blood pressure was climbing again. 152 over 98. She stood anyway. Because even now, even after everything, some part of Caroline could not make a scene. Some part of her still wanted to believe this was a misunderstanding. Some part of her still loved the man who was destroying her right in front of the witnesses. Her hand went to her belly. She felt the baby shift, roll, press against her palm as if reaching for her. "It is okay," she thought. "Mommy is okay. We are okay." She did not believe any of it. Carolyn walked past Derek, past Brittany, past the woman who still would not look at her. The hospital gown hung loose on her shoulders, barely covering her swollen body. Her feet were bare against the cold linoleum floor. Each step sent jolts of pain through her lower back. She made it 3 steps into the hallway before her knees buckled. She grabbed the wall, steadied herself, kept walking. Behind her, she heard Derek say something to Dr. Cross. His voice was calm, apologetic, reasonable. He was already spinning the story, already rewriting history. Caroline kept walking. The hallway stretched endlessly before her. Nurses in colorful scrubs moved past her, too busy to notice the pregnant woman in the hospital gown stumbling along the wall. Visitors clutched flowers and balloons. A baby cried somewhere in the distance. Another woman's baby, Another woman's joy. She had nowhere to go. She was 7 months pregnant with a high-risk condition. Her husband had just kicked her out of her hospital bed for another woman, and she had nowhere to go. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. The walls pressed in around her. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Not here, not where people could see. Find somewhere else, he had said, as if she were nothing, as if their baby were nothing, as if 4 years of marriage and 2 lost pregnancies and countless promises meant nothing at all. Carolyn stopped walking. She pressed her back against the cold wall. She closed her eyes. The baby kicked again, stronger now, insistent, demanding attention. "I know," Carolyn whispered, her hand pressed against her belly. "I know, sweet girl. Mommy is going to figure this out. Mommy always figures things out." But standing there in that cold hallway, with her blood pressure climbing and her heart shattering into a million pieces, Caroline had no idea how she would figure anything out ever again. She only knew that something fundamental had broken, something that could never be repaired, something that would change her life forever. Her marriage was over. She just did not know it yet. The clock on the wall read 7:43 in the evening. In exactly 22 days, Derek Whitmore would collapse from a massive heart attack. He would be rushed to the same hospital. He would need emergency surgery, and the only surgeon in the region who could save his life would be the father of the woman he had just humiliated. But Caroline did not know that yet. All she knew was the cold wall against her back, the baby moving inside her, the sound of her own heart breaking, and the terrible certainty that nothing would ever be the same. Nurse Jolene Patterson found her 7 minutes later. Caroline was still gripping the wall. Her knuckles had turned white. Her breathing came in short, shallow gasps that made her chest ache. The baby was moving frantically now, responding to her mother's distress with kicks and rolls that bordered on painful. "Oh, honey." Jolene's voice was warm, steady, full of something that sounded like recognition. "Oh no, come with me right now." Jolene Patterson had worked labor and delivery at Mercy General Hospital for 27 years. She had seen everything there was to see in those years. She had seen fathers faint in delivery rooms at the sight of blood. She had seen mothers weep with joy when they held their babies for the first time. She had seen miracles that defied medical explanation. She had seen tragedies that haunted her still. But she had never seen anything quite like this. She had been at the nurse's station when Derek Whitmore walked past with that young woman in the wheelchair. She had seen the way his hand rested on the small of Brittany's back. Possessive, familiar. She had heard him ask which room his wife was in. She had watched him wheel that girl toward room 412. She had known exactly what was about to happen, and she had been too slow to stop it. "Come on, sweetheart," Jolene said now, wrapping a sturdy arm around Caroline's waist. "I have a quiet room down the hall. Private. Nobody will bother you there. Let us get you settled and check on that baby." Caroline let herself be guided. Her feet moved without her telling them to. Her mind felt wrapped in thick cotton, muffling everything. The sounds of the hospital, the smell of antiseptic, the concerned voices of nurses asking if she was okay. She was not okay. She would never be okay again. The quiet room was small but comfortable. A single bed with fresh sheets. A window overlooking the parking lot where streetlights cast orange pools of light in the darkness. A comfortable chair in the corner. A small table with a vase of artificial flowers. Jolene helped Caroline onto the bed. Gentle hands, practiced movements. She checked her blood pressure. 155/100. Still too high, but better than before. "Just breathe," Jolene said, her voice steady and calm. "Nice and slow. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. There you go. Just like that." Carolyn breathed. In through her nose, out through her mouth, the way they had taught her in the birthing class at the community center. The class Derek had missed 3 times because of late meetings and business dinners. "I need to tell you something," Jolene said after a long moment. Her voice had changed, softer now, heavier. "And I am sorry I did not say it sooner. I should have said something weeks ago." Carolyn looked up at her. The nurse's face was weathered by years of long shifts and difficult decisions. Kind eyes, strong jaw, an expression full of something that looked like regret. "That girl," Jolene said quietly. "Brittany. She has been calling his cell phone every single day you have been here. Sometimes twice a day, sometimes more." Carolyn felt the words hit her like physical blows, one after another. I answer phones sometimes at the nurse's station when everyone is busy, Jolene continued. I know her voice now. Recognized it the second day you were admitted. She always asks for Mr. Whitmore. Always sounds impatient when I say he is with his wife. Every day, every single day. He always steps out to take the calls, always looks around first to make sure you are not watching. Always comes back with some excuse about work or investors or the market. Caroline's stomach turned. She tasted bile at the back of her throat. The room tilted dangerously around her. How long have you known? Jolene looked down at her hands. Strong hands, capable hands, hands that had delivered hundreds of babies and comforted hundreds of mothers. I suspected something the second day you were admitted. The way he looked at his phone whenever it buzzed. The way he made excuses to step out of the room. The way he watched the door like he was expecting someone. But you did not have proof. Not until this morning. She called the nurse's station directly, asked for Mr. Whitmore, said she needed to talk to him about their dinner reservations at La Maison. Jolene paused. She said the reservation was under her name, not yours. She called it their anniversary dinner. The room spun. Caroline pressed her hand against the mattress to steady herself. Their anniversary dinner. Derek and Brittany had an anniversary. A date they celebrated, a milestone they marked. How long? How long had this been going on? I am not crazy, Caroline whispered. The words came out strangled, desperate. I knew something seeing was wrong. I felt it in my bones. I asked him a dozen times if everything was okay. You are not crazy, Jolene confirmed. Her voice was fierce now, protective. You are not dramatic. You are not hormonal. And you are absolutely not overreacting. The door opened. Dr. Cross stepped inside, her face tight with barely contained fury. She carried a tablet in one hand and a folder in the other. I have reported the incident to hospital administration, she said without preamble. Your husband cannot remove you from medical care against my explicit orders. I have documented everything that happened in that room. Every word he said. Everything I witnessed. Carolyn heard the words through a fog. They reached her ears, but struggled to penetrate the cotton wrapped around her brain. How long have you known? She asked. Known what? About her, about Brittany. How long has everyone known? The silence that followed was answer enough. Dr. Cross sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch, but maintaining professional distance. I have been your doctor for 6 years, Carolyn. I delivered your first pregnancy test results. I held your hand when we lost the first baby at 11 weeks. I cried with you when we lost the second at 15 weeks. I was there when you called me at midnight, sobbing because you finally saw 2 pink lines that stayed. I remember everything. 3 months ago, you brought Derek to your ultrasound appointment. The one where we found out you were having a girl. The one where we saw her sucking her thumb on the screen. Carolyn nodded. She remembered that day perfectly. Every detail was burned into her memory. Derek had held her hand during the ultrasound. He had smiled when the technician pointed out the baby's tiny fingers and toes. He had wiped away a tear when they heard the heartbeat. After the appointment, I saw him in the parking garage, level 3, near the stairwell. He was on his phone, arguing with someone. His voice was loud enough to hear from 20 feet away. What did he say? Dr. Cross hesitated. I heard him say that the pregnancy had complicated things, that he needed more time, that someone needed to be patient. And you did not tell me? Cross's eyes filled with tears, professional composure cracking. I wanted to. God, Caroline, I wanted to tell you every single time I saw you, but I kept hoping I was wrong. I kept hoping there was an innocent explanation. I kept hoping he would come to his senses before the baby arrived. There was no innocent explanation. There never had been. Carolyn thought about her baby shower 3 months ago, the pink streamers and white balloons, the cake decorated with tiny fondant booties, the room full of women smiling at her, congratulating her, telling her how lucky she was. Brittany had been there. She had come as Derek's assistant, helping coordinate the catering and manage the gift table. She had smiled at Caroline, complimented her dress, said she could not wait to meet the baby. Caroline remembered now, seeing it all clearly for the first time. The way Brittany touched Derek's arm when she thought no one was looking. The way she leaned close to whisper in his ear. The way Derek's sister-in-law, Patricia, pulled away when Caroline tried to hug her. The way conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Everyone knew. Derek's family knew. His co-workers knew. The nurses at this hospital knew. Her own doctor knew. Everyone except her. "I am not crazy," Caroline said again. Louder this time. More certain. "I saw the signs. I noticed the changes. I asked the questions. I just did not want to believe the answers." "You trusted your husband," Jolene said. "That is not a crime. That is what wives are supposed to do." "No," Caroline's voice hardened. Something shifted inside her. The fog began to clear. "Trusting him was not a crime, but what he did to me tonight was. What he has been doing to me for God knows how long was." She looked at Dr. Cross, met her eyes directly. "I want everything documented. Every detail of what happened in that room tonight. Every word he said. Every action he took. I want dates and times and witness statements." "Already done. I want copies of my medical records, all of them, going back to when I first found out I was pregnant. Every appointment, every note, every conversation. I will have them ready by tomorrow morning. And I want to know exactly how long my husband has been sleeping with his executive assistant. I want to know everything." The words hung in the air between them. Raw, painful, true. Carolyn had spent the past year making excuses. Late nights at the office that stretched until midnight. Business trips that lasted entire weekends. The way he stopped reaching for her in bed. The way he flinched when she touched him unexpectedly. The way he looked at his phone with a smile he never directed at her. She was not blind. She was hopeful. And hope had made her stupid. But not anymore. The baby kicked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Strong kicks. Fighter kicks. Warrior kicks. Caroline pressed her hand against her belly, felt her daughter move beneath her palm. "It is okay, Eleanor," she whispered. "Mommy is waking up now. Mommy is finally seeing clearly." Eleanor. She had not told Derek the name yet. She had been saving it, waiting for the right moment. A romantic dinner at their favorite restaurant. A quiet evening at home by the fireplace. Some perfect moment that existed only in her imagination. Now she knew that perfect moment would never come. Had never been possible, because she had been building dreams on a foundation of lies. Eleanor Margaret, after her grandmother, after the strong women who came before her, after the ones who survived and thrived and never let anyone break them. Eleanor would never know her father as Caroline had known him. She would never believe his lies. She would never trust his empty promises. She would never feel this particular pain. Caroline would make sure of that. "I am not going to let him win," Caroline said. Her voice was stronger now, clearer. "I am not going to let him destroy me." "That is right," Jolene said. "You are stronger than he thinks, stronger than he wants you to be." "I am going to survive this. For her." Caroline pressed her hand harder against her belly. "For both of us." The truth hurt more than she had ever imagined possible. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the pain and the shock, and the shattered pieces of her heart, Caroline felt something else. Freedom. The terrible, beautiful, terrifying freedom of finally knowing the truth. Caroline's phone buzzed at 4:17 the following afternoon. She looked at the screen through eyes swollen from crying. The name glowed bright in the dim hospital room. Dad. Dr. Richard Hayes was not a man who showed panic. He had spent 32 years as a cardiothoracic surgeon, performing some of the most complex operations known to medicine. He had operated on senators and athletes and foreign dignitaries. He had held beating hearts in his hands and coaxed them back to rhythm. His hands were always steady. His heart was always calm. But when Caroline answered the phone, she heard something in his voice that she had not heard since childhood. Something that made her blood run cold. Fear. "Sweetheart." His voice was tight, controlled. "I just got a call from Evelyn Cross." Carolyn could not speak. The words lodged in her throat like broken glass. "I am on my way right now. Your mother is already in the car with me." "We left the second Evelyn hung up. We should be there in 40 minutes. Still Carolyn said nothing. The events of last night had stolen her voice, her words, her ability to form coherent thoughts. But I need you to listen to me carefully, Richard continued. His surgeon's voice now, the one that delivered difficult news with precision and compassion. Can you do that, sweetheart? Can you listen? Yes, Daddy. Her voice came out as a whisper, a child's voice. The voice of the little girl who had run to him when she scraped her knees or had nightmares about monsters in the closet. You are not alone. You have never been alone, and whatever happens next, whatever comes from this situation, you and that baby are coming home with us. Do you understand? The tears that Caroline had been fighting since last night finally broke free. They rolled down her cheeks in hot streams, dripping onto the hospital blanket she had been clutching for hours. Daddy, she whispered. He kicked me out of my room. For her, for Brittany. He said I was being dramatic. He said a sprained wrist was more important than our baby. I know. Evelyn told me everything. How long has this been going on? Do you know? Does everyone know? The pause that followed lasted 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5, an eternity of silence on a phone line. We will talk when I get there, Richard finally said. His voice had changed, something new in it, something hard and certain and resolved. Just rest for now. Take care of yourself and my granddaughter. Your mother and I will handle everything else. He hung up before she could ask more questions. Caroline stared at the phone in her hand. The screen faded to black. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark glass. Hollow eyes, pale skin, a woman she barely recognized. Her father had sounded different at the end of that call. Not scared anymore, not worried, something else entirely. He had sounded certain, like a man who already knew the answers to the questions she was asking. Like a man who had been waiting for this call. 43 minutes later, Richard and Margaret Hayes walked through the hospital door. Richard was still wearing his surgical scrubs beneath his coat. He must have come straight from the hospital where he worked, not even stopping to change. His gray hair was disheveled from pulling off his surgical cap. His eyes were sharp and focused behind his wire-rimmed glasses. Margaret looked like she had aged 10 years since Caroline had seen her the previous week at Sunday dinner. Her usually perfect silver hair was pulled back in a hasty ponytail. Her makeup was absent for the first time Caroline could remember. But her spine was straight, her chin was high. Her expression was the one Caroline remembered from childhood, the one that meant someone was about to face the full force of Margaret Hayes' righteous fury. Margaret took one look at her daughter in that narrow hospital bed, took in the swollen eyes, the tear-stained cheeks, the way Caroline clutched her belly as if protecting Eleanor from an invisible threat. She did not cry. Her eyes went hard instead, cold, determined. Where is he? Mom, please do not. Where is he? Richard put a hand on his wife's arm, gentle but firm, the touch of a man who had spent decades calming panicked patients and their families. Not yet. First we make sure Caroline and the baby are completely safe. Then we handle Derek. He reached into his leather messenger bag, the one Caroline had given him for his 60th birthday. He pulled out a manila folder, thick with papers, worn at the edges as if it had been opened and closed many times. I need to tell you something, Richard said, settling into the chair beside her bed. And I am deeply sorry I did not tell you sooner. I wrestled with this decision for months. I lost sleep over it. But I need you to understand why I made the choice I made. Carolyn looked at the folder in her father's hands. Her stomach tightened. Her pulse quickened. The heart monitor beside her began to beat faster. What is that? After your baby shower 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator. The words landed like bombs in the quiet hospital room. Caroline felt the world tilt around her. The walls seemed to shift. The floor seemed to move beneath the bed. You did what? I saw things at that shower that troubled me deeply. The way that young woman looked at Derek across the room. The way your sister-in-law, Patricia, turned away when you tried to embrace her. The way conversations stopped when you walked in. Too many small things that added up to something I did not want to believe. Richard opened the folder. Inside were photographs printed on glossy paper, bank statements covered in yellow highlighter, printed text messages with damning passages circled in red ink. Derek has been having an affair with Brittany Cole for 14 months. Since 2 months after she started working for him, He pays the rent on her apartment, a two-bedroom in the Riverside Towers, $2,300 a month. He bought her a white BMW convertible. He took her to Cabo San Lucas for a week last March when he told you he was at an investment conference in Chicago. Carolyn took the folder with trembling hands. The photographs blurred before her eyes. She blinked hard, forced herself to focus. The first photograph showed Derek and Brittany at a restaurant, an upscale Italian place with white tablecloths and candles on every table. His hand rested on her cheek. Her head was tilted back in laughter. They looked happy. They looked in love. She recognized the date stamped in the corner of the photograph. March 15th of this year, their wedding anniversary. Derek had called her that night at 7:30, said he had to work late, a crisis with a major client. He might not be home until after midnight. She should not wait up. She had eaten dinner alone at their expensive dining room table, watched a romantic comedy alone on their oversized couch, fallen asleep alone in their king-size bed, while her husband was across town, touching another woman's face, celebrating their anniversary with someone else. "There is more," Richard said. His voice was heavy, reluctant. "But it can wait until you are stronger, until you have had time to process this. Tell me now, I need to know everything now." Richard glanced at Margaret. Something passed between them. 28 years of marriage, a whole conversation in a single look. Questions asked and answered without words. "Derek's family has been helping him hide this for 6 months," Margaret said. Her voice was still wrapped in silk. "Patricia Whitmore writes the checks for Brittany's rent. She draws them from a household account, so they do not appear on Derek's financial statements. They have all known about this affair. Derek's mother, Derek's father, his sister, his brother-in-law, they have all been covering for him while smiling at you across their dinner table." The betrayal multiplied, spread through Caroline's chest like poison, like cancer, like something that would eat her from the inside out. Derek's parents had hugged her at the baby shower. They had bought tiny pink dresses for their grandchild. They had toasted to her health and happiness, all while paying rent for the woman sleeping with their son, while knowing their son was destroying his wife piece by piece. "Why did you not tell me sooner?" Carolyn asked. Her voice cracked on the question. "I deserve to know. I had a right to know." Richard leaned forward, took her hand the way he had when she was 7 years old and afraid of thunderstorms, when she was 14 and heartbroken over a boy who did not like her back, when she was 22 and terrified of starting her first real job. "I wanted you to have choices," he said. "I did not want you to feel trapped or cornered. I thought if I told you while you were pregnant, while you were vulnerable, you might feel like you had no options." "What options do I have now?" "More than you think. I have copies of everything. Bank records, hotel receipts, text messages, photographs. Enough evidence to ensure you get everything you deserve in the divorce. Enough to protect you and Eleanor from whatever Derek tries to do next." Divorce, the word hung in the air between them. Heavy, final, real. "I also thought Derek might end the affair on his own," Richard continued. "I thought maybe the reality of becoming a father would wake him up. I thought maybe he would come to his senses before the baby arrived and we would never need to have this conversation at all. He did not come to his senses. No, he did not. He got worse." Carolyn looked down at the photographs again. Derek smiling, Derek laughing, Derek alive in a way he had not been with her in months, maybe years, maybe ever. She thought about all the times over the past year when she had felt something was wrong and dismissed it. The late nights at the office that stretched until midnight, the business trips that lasted entire weekends, the way he stopped touching her belly when she talked about the baby, the way he flinched when she said she loved him, the distant looks at dinner, the way he checked his phone constantly, the smile that crossed his face when certain texts arrived. She was not blind, she was hopeful, and hope had made her stupid. "What do I do now?" she asked. Her voice sounded small, lost, like a child asking for directions in a world that suddenly made no sense. Margaret knelt beside the bed. Her perfume smelled like home, like Sunday dinners and Christmas mornings and birthday parties. like every safe place Caroline had ever known. You come home with us, Margaret said fiercely. You rest. You take care of yourself and our granddaughter. And then you divorce that man and take him for everything he has. I am not sure I can do this. I am not sure I am strong enough. You can. Margaret's voice left no room for doubt. You are a haze. We do not break. We do not bend. And we certainly do not let anyone treat us like we are less than we deserve. Your grandmother survived the Great Depression with $2 and 3 children. Your great-aunt built a business from nothing when no bank would give a woman a loan. You come from a long line of women who refused to be defeated. Richard squeezed Carolyn's hand. Your mother is right. You deserve so much better than what Derek has given you. And we are going to make sure you get it. The baby kicked, hard, insistent, demanding attention. Carolyn closed her eyes. She counted the kicks the way Dr. Cross had taught her. 1, 2, 3, 4, bangs, strong kicks, healthy kicks, fighter kicks. Can I have a few minutes alone? She asked. I need to think. I need to process everything you have told me. Her parents exchanged another look, then nodded in unison. We will be right outside, Richard said. Take all the time you need. We are not going anywhere. They left. The door clicked shut behind them. The room fell silent except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Caroline sat in the quiet. The afternoon sun slanted through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. The baby moved inside her. She counted things the way she always did when overwhelmed. When the world became too much and her mind needed something to focus on. The tiles on the floor, 42 white squares, the lights in the ceiling, 6 fluorescent panels, the petals on the artificial flowers. Too many to count, so she started over. Numbers made sense. Numbers did not lie. Numbers were solid and reliable and true. Derek lied. His parents lied. His sister lied. Everyone lied. But the numbers were always honest. Carolyn put her hand on her belly, felt Eleanor shift beneath her palm, felt the tiny foot press against her skin. I am sorry, she whispered to her daughter. I am so sorry. I chose wrong. I chose a man who was not worthy of us. But I will choose better from now on. I promise you, Eleanor, I will choose better. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. Tick, tick, tick. Each second was a step away from her old life. Each moment was a step towards something new. Carolyn did not know what that something new would look like. She did not know how she would survive this. She did not know anything anymore. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would not let Derek Whitmore destroy her. She would not let him win. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Derek Whitmore arrived at 7:15 that evening. He stormed into the family waiting room where Richard and Margaret sat on either side of Caroline like sentinels guarding a fortress. His charcoal suit was wrinkled now. His tie was completely undone, hanging loose around his neck. His hair was wild, as if he had been running his hands through it for hours. This is between me and my wife, he announced. His voice was loud, aggressive, designed to intimidate. The voice he used when closing deals or firing employees who had disappointed him. Richard did not stand, did not raise his voice, did not move at all. He simply looked at Derek with the same steady gaze he used in operating rooms when everything was going wrong and he needed to remain calm. Sit down, Derek. You do not get to tell me what to do. Caroline is my wife. This is our marriage, our family, our business. You have no right to interfere in our personal matters. Sit down. Something in Richard's tone made Derek obey. He had heard that voice once before, the night he asked for Caroline's hand in marriage. Richard had said yes after a long pause, had shaken his hand and welcomed him to the family, but his eyes had said something else entirely. I am watching you. I see exactly what you are. And if you hurt her, I will make you regret it. Derek sat in the chair across from them. His jaw was clenched. His hands were fisted on his knees. His eyes moved between Caroline and her parents, calculating, assessing, searching for advantage. Caroline is moving back home, Richard said calmly. She will be staying with us until the baby arrives, possibly longer. You will receive divorce papers from her attorney within the week. Derek laughed. The sound was hollow, desperate, a man grasping at anything that might save him. You cannot be serious. All of this over a misunderstanding? Because my assistant needed a place to rest? Because Caroline overreacted to a completely innocent situation? A misunderstanding. Margaret spoke for the first time. Her voice was ice. Her eyes were colder. Is that what you are calling it? She pulled out her phone, scrolled to a photograph, turned the screen so Derek could see it clearly. Derek and Brittany on a white sand beach. Crystal blue water stretching to the horizon behind them. Palm trees swaying in the breeze. His arm around her waist. His hand resting on her stomach. Cabo San Lucas, Margaret said. March 11th through March 18th of this year. The Grand Palladium Resort. The honeymoon suite, which costs $850 a night. While your pregnant wife ate dinner alone on your anniversary and believed your lies about an investment conference. Derek's face went pale. The color drained from his cheeks like water from a sink. That photograph could be from anywhere. That could be anyone. You cannot prove anything. Actually, we can prove quite a lot. Richard reached into his messenger bag, pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. Bank statements showing transfers to Brittany Cole's account totaling $47,000 over 14 months. Lease agreements for her apartment signed with your guarantor's signature. The registration for the BMW convertible you purchased for her in January. Hotel receipts from 6 different cities. Text messages retrieved from a cloud backup you apparently forgot existed. He spread the documents across the kippy table between them. A damning paper trail, evidence of 14 months of lies and betrayal. Derek stared at the papers. His jaw worked, but no words came out. She was pregnant too, was she not? Margaret continued, her voice sharp as a blade. Brittany, about 3 months ago, before she was not anymore. What little color remained in Derek's face disappeared entirely. We know about that too, Margaret said. We know you pressured her to terminate the pregnancy. We know you paid for the procedure with a wire transfer to a clinic in Connecticut where no one would recognize you. We know everything, Derek. Every sordid, shameful detail of what you have been doing. The silence stretched for 5 seconds. 10, 15. Derek turned to Caroline. His eyes were wild now, calculating. She recognized that expression. She had seen it in board meetings when deals went wrong. When investors backed out. When he needed to pivot, to spin, to reframe the narrative. Caroline, please. His voice shifted, softer now, pleading, the voice he used when he wanted something. Let me explain. This is not what it looks like. Brittany means nothing to me. She was a mistake, a stupid, meaningless mistake. Which part was a mistake, Derek? Caroline's voice surprised her, steady, cold, strong. Sleeping with her for 14 months? Taking her on vacation to celebrate our anniversary? Getting her pregnant? She told you about that. Your father-in-law's investigator told me about that, along with the apartment you pay for, the car you bought her, the jewelry you charged to our joint credit card, the hotels, the restaurants, the lasses, all of it. Derek's mask slipped, just for a moment. The charming husband disappeared. The loving father-to-be vanished. Behind the mask was something else, something cold, something calculating, something she had never seen before, or maybe something she had always refused to see. You hired someone to spy on me? He demanded. The pleading tone was gone, replaced by righteous anger. That is a violation of my privacy. That is probably illegal. I could sue you for invasion of privacy. I could press charges. Richard laughed softly, a single humorless chuckle. You are welcome to try. This is ridiculous. Derek stood up, began to pace, running his hands through his hair. Caroline, think about what you are doing here. Think about the consequences. Think about the baby. Our daughter needs her father. You cannot take her away from me. Our daughter needs a father who treats her mother with respect, Caroline said. Our daughter needs a father who keeps his promises. Our daughter needs a father who does not kick her pregnant mother out of a hospital bed so his mistress can rest her sprained wrist. That was a misunderstanding. I explained that. Brittany was in pain. I was trying to help. You were trying to help your girlfriend, while your wife was having pregnancy complications. while your unborn child's life was at risk. You are twisting everything. You always do this. You take innocent situations and make them into something sinister. 14 months is not innocent. 14 months is a choice. Every single day for 14 months, you chose her. You chose her over me. You chose her over our marriage. You chose her over our baby. Derek stopped pacing, his jaw tightened, his eyes hardened. You changed, he said. His voice was cold now, accusatory. After you got pregnant, you became a completely different person. You were always tired, always worried about the baby, always nagging me about doctor appointments and nursery paint colors and baby names. You stopped paying attention to me. You stopped being fun. You stopped being the woman I married. Carolyn stared at him. She had heard this argument before, read about it in magazine articles and online forums, seen it depicted in movies and television shows. The cheater blaming the victim, the liar turning the story around, making the faithful spouse responsible for the unfaithful one's choices. But hearing it from Derek's mouth, from the man she had loved since their first date, the man she had built a life with, the man whose child she was carrying, it cut deeper than she had ever imagined possible. I was growing your child, Carolyn said slowly, each word deliberate, each syllable heavy with years of suppressed anger. I was tired because my body was creating a human being. I was worried because I wanted our daughter to be healthy. I talked about nursery colors because I wanted our home to be ready for her arrival. See? Derek threw up his hands. It was ways about the baby. Every conversation, every thought, every moment, never about me, never about us, never about our relationship. You wanted me to choose between you and our daughter, before she was even born, before she took her first breath. You wanted me to put your needs above hers. That is not what I meant. You are twisting my words again. That is exactly what you meant. Carolyn stood up slowly. Her legs were stronger now than they had been the night before. Her blood pressure had stabilized. Cross had cleared her to leave as long as she went somewhere safe and continued bed rest. Her parents' house was safe. Her marriage had never been safe. She understood that now. I want you out of this hospital, Carolyn said. Her voice did not waver. I want you out of my home. I want you out of my life. You cannot do this. I am Eleanor's father. I have rights. I have lawyers. You kicked me out of my hospital bed while I was having pregnancy complications. You gave my room to your pregnant mistress. You endangered our daughter's life because your girlfriend had a sore wrist. Do you really want to explain that to a judge? Derek opened his mouth to respond, closed it, opened it again. For the first time since Caroline had known him, Derek Whitmore had nothing to say. Richard stood up. He was an inch shorter than Derek, but somehow seemed to tower over him. I believe my daughter asked you to leave. This is not over. I am not going to let you people destroy my family. You destroyed your family, Richard said calmly. 14 months ago, when you made your choice. My daughter is simply finalizing the paperwork. Derek looked at Caroline one last time. His eyes searched her face, looking for weakness, looking for doubt, looking for the woman who had always forgiven him, always believed him, always put his needs first. That woman was gone. You will regret this, Derek said. You and your parents, you will all regret this. He walked out without another word. His footsteps echoed down the hospital corridor. The door swung shut behind him. Caroline exhaled. Her shoulders dropped. The tension she had been carrying for months, years, began to drain away. It is over, she said. Almost, Richard replied. Almost over. But there is one more thing you need to see. He pulled another document from his folder. A single page, official looking, legal language in small print, a life insurance policy, $2 million. Derek had taken it out 6 months ago. The beneficiary was Derek Whitmore. The insured was Caroline Hayes Whitmore. The baby kicked hard against Caroline's ribs, and she understood with horrible clarity that she had not just been married to a cheater. She had been married to something much worse. Word spread through Derek's social circle like wildfire through dry grass. Within 48 hours of Caroline's departure from the hospital, everyone seemed to know. His mother, Patricia, called first, then his father, Thomas, then his business partner, Graham. then his golf buddies and fraternity brothers, and everyone else who moved in their expensive, exclusive world. Not a single one of them called to check on Caroline. They called to manage the situation. Patricia Whitmore arrived at Richard and Margaret's house 2 days after Caroline moved in. Her silver Mercedes pulled into the circular driveway at precisely 10 in the morning. She emerged wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than Caroline's monthly salary. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, eyes like chips of ice. Caroline was sitting in the sunroom when Patricia walked in without knocking. The autumn sun streamed through the windows, warming Caroline's skin. Eleanor was somersaulting inside her, seemingly determined to test every inch of available space. "May I come in?" Patricia asked. A formality. She was already inside. "You may not." "Carolyn, please. We need to discuss this situation like rational adults." "I am an adult. Your son has demonstrated quite clearly that he is not. But by all means, say what you came to say." Patricia perched on the edge of a wicker chair. She crossed her ankles, folded her hands in her lap, adopted the expression she used at charity galas and society luncheons. "This family has weathered worse scandals than a little marital disagreement. Divorce is not the answer. Think of the baby. Think of Eleanor. She deserves to grow up with two parents in the same home. Eleanor deserves parents who respect each other. She deserves a father who does not betray her mother. She deserves better than what Derek is capable of giving." Derek made a mistake. Men make mistakes. It is unfortunate, but it is also reality. It does not mean we throw away an entire marriage over one small indiscretion. One small indiscretion. Carolyn tasted the words. They were bitter on her tongue. 14 months, $47,000. A terminated pregnancy. A $2 million life insurance policy on your daughter-in-law. Is that what you call a small indiscretion? Something flickered across Patricia's face. Surprise, concern, fear. "I do not know what you are talking about with any insurance policy. That is simply ridiculous. Derek loves you. Derek loves himself, and he loves whatever makes his life easier. I was convenient. Brittany was exciting. Neither of us were people to him. We were just characters in the story he was telling himself." Patricia's composure cracked. Just a little. Just enough to show something ugly underneath. "You ungrateful girl. Do you have any idea how lucky you were to marry into this family? The doors that opened for you, the opportunities you would never have had otherwise. And this is how you repay us?" Repay you? Carolyn felt something shift inside her. The last fragments of fear and doubt burned away, replaced by something hot and fierce. "I was a good wife, I was loyal and supportive, and I believed every lie your son told me. I gave up my career to support his. I moved across the country, away from my family, to help build his business. I endured 2 miscarriages while he was too busy to hold my hand." She stood up. Patricia flinched back. "And what did I get in return? A husband who was sleeping with his assistant before our 2nd anniversary. In-laws who knew about the affair and helped him hide it. A family that looked me in the eye and lied to me for over a year. We were protecting Derek. That is what families do. You were protecting yourselves, protecting your reputation, protecting your precious image." Carolyn moved closer. "You never gave a damn about me. I was just the wife, just the incubator for your grandchild. Just another asset in the Whitmore portfolio." Patricia rose to her feet. Her perfect mask was crumbling now, anger replacing composure. "You will regret this. Without the Whitmore name, without our money and connections, you are nothing. Your child is nothing. You will spend the rest of your life struggling while Derek moves on to someone better. My child is a haze. She has never been nothing. And she will be raised knowing exactly what kind of people her father's family really are." Patricia's hand rose as if she was going to slap Caroline. She caught herself, lowered her arm. "I came here to offer peace, to find a solution. Clearly that was a waste of my time." "Yes, it was. Please leave now." Patricia left without another word. Her Mercedes roared out of the driveway, scattering gravel in its wake. Carolyn sank back into her chair. Her hands were trembling. Her heart was racing. But somewhere deep inside, she felt something that might have been satisfaction. She had finally stood up for herself, finally said the things she should have said years ago. 3 days later, Graham Mercer appeared. He found Caroline in the hospital parking lot. She was picking up copies of her medical records per her attorney's request. She noticed him waiting by her car before she reached it. Graham was sweating despite the cool October weather. His expensive suit was rumpled. His tie was crooked. His eyes darted nervously, checking for anyone who might see them together. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Somewhere private. It is important." "Why should I talk to you? You are Derek's business partner. You probably knew about Brittany too." "I knew. I'm not proud of it. But what I need to tell you is more important than any affair." They sat in Caroline's car. The engine ran. The heater hummed. The windows fogged from their breath. "The hedge fund is in serious trouble," Graham said. His voice was barely above a whisper, as if he feared being overheard even in the enclosed vehicle. "The kind of trouble that brings in federal investigators." Caroline's stomach tightened. "What kind of trouble?" "Derek has been covering losses with client money, moving funds between accounts to hide the deficit, fabricating statements to keep investors calm. The total exposure is around $37 million, maybe more." $37 million. Carolyn had signed joint tax returns for 4 years. She had trusted Derek completely with their finances. She had not questioned the documents he put in front of her. She had not read the fine print. She had just signed where he pointed and believed everything would be fine. "Could I be held responsible," she asked, "for what he did?" Graham hesitated. "That is why I am here. I wanted to warn you. If this divorce goes public, if investigators start looking closely at the fund, if the SEC gets involved, you need to protect yourself." "How?" "Get a forensic accountant, someone who can untangle your finances from his. Document everything you can about your lack of involvement in the business side. Make it clear that you were kept in the dark about the fund's operations." "I was kept in the dark about everything," Carolyn said bitterly. "My entire marriage was apparently a fiction." Graham looked out the window. His jaw was tight. Something that looked like guilt crossed his face. "There is one more thing, something I probably should not tell you." "Tell me anyway." 6 months ago, Derek mentioned getting additional life insurance. He said it was standard practice for business owners, made sense to have coverage in case something happened to either of you. "I know about the policy. My father's investigator found it." "Did you know there was a second one? Another policy, different company, another $2 million? Caroline's blood ran cold. $4 million total. $4 million in life insurance taken out on her 6 months ago, right after Brittany's pregnancy was terminated. Right around the time Derek started spending more nights away from home. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Derek is your partner. You have been friends since college." Graham was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "I have 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9, and I keep thinking about what I would want someone to do if it were them, if they were the ones being lied to and betrayed and whatever else Derek might be planning." He got out of the car without another word, disappeared across the parking lot, left Caroline alone with the terrible weight of what she had learned. That evening, the story went viral. Someone at the hospital had talked, one of the nurses, one of the administrators, maybe just someone who had witnessed the scene in room 412 and could not resist sharing the drama. A gossip blog picked up the story first, then a local news station, then a national outlet looking for salacious content. "Hedge fund manager kicks pregnant wife from hospital bed for mistress." The headline was everywhere. Caroline's face appeared on screens across the country. Her name trended on social media. Her private humiliation became public entertainment. She watched from her childhood bedroom as strangers dissected her marriage, analyzed her appearance, judged her choices, declared her guilty or innocent based on absolutely nothing. Her phone exploded with calls and messages, old friends she had not heard from in years, distant relatives wanting details, reporters offering money for exclusive interviews. She turned off the phone, buried it in a drawer. In the bathroom, she gripped the sink and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her mascara had smeared. Dark streaks ran down her cheeks. She looked exactly how she felt. Ruined, exposed, raw. "I am still here," she whispered to herself. I am still standing. They have not destroyed me. They cannot destroy me. But even as she said the words, she was not sure she believed them. The darkness came at 2:14 in the morning. Carolyn lay in her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling. The same floral wallpaper she had picked out when she was 12 years old. The same bookshelf full of college textbooks she could not bear to throw away. The same window overlooking the garden where she had married Derek 4 years ago. She could not sleep. The baby shifted restlessly. Eleanor was never still these days, growing bigger, running out of room, eager to enter a world that suddenly seemed much more complicated than it had a week ago. Caroline's mind would not stop spinning. The photographs, the bank statements, the life insurance policies, the viral headline, Patricia's cold eyes, Derek's calculating expression, Graham's warning, $4 million in life insurance, taken out 6 months ago, on a healthy 29-year-old woman with no medical issues beyond a high-risk pregnancy. What had Derek been planning? Carolyn pushed herself out of bed, put on the old robe she had worn in high school, walked through the silent house on bare feet. The hardwood floors creaked beneath her. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked steadily. The house smelled like her childhood, like safety and warmth and all the things she had lost. She found herself in her father's study without consciously deciding to go there. The room smelled like leather and old books and pipe tobacco, even though Richard had quit smoking 20 years ago. The same smell from every memory of her childhood. She pulled out her parents' wedding album from the bottom shelf, flipped through the pages, her mother in white lace, her father in a dark suit, both of them so young, so hopeful, so certain of their future together. They had no idea what challenges lay ahead, the financial struggles, the health scares, the times when they would have to choose each other over everything else. But they had made it, 28 years and counting. Carolyn turned to the photographs of herself, baby pictures, first steps, first day of kindergarten, middle school awkwardness, high school graduation. In every photograph, her father was looking at her with the same expression: pride, protection, unconditional love, the look of a man who would move mountains for his daughter, who would do anything to keep her safe. That was what a father was supposed to look like. That was what Eleanor deserved. But Derek would never look at their daughter that way. Derek was not capable of that kind of love. He had proven that conclusively. Carolyn thought about the night Derek proposed. A rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights, champagne that cost more than her weekly paycheck, a diamond ring that sparkled under the stars. She had cried that night, happy tears, hopeful tears. She had felt like the luckiest woman in the world. She was crying now, too. Different tears. Tears of grief and anger and shame. Her phone buzzed. She had turned it back on to check for important messages. A news alert appeared on the screen. Exclusive interview. Hedge fund manager Derek Whitmore addresses viral controversy. Carolyn opened the link, watched the video. Derek sat in what appeared to be his office. Perfect lighting, perfect framing, clearly arranged by a professional public relations team. He wore a conservative navy suit. His expression was earnest, concerned, sympathetic. "My wife is going through a very difficult time," he said to the interviewer. His voice was measured, practiced. Pregnancy can cause significant hormonal changes, mood swings, irrational behavior. "I love Caroline deeply, and I hope we can work through this challenging period as a family." Carolyn watched her husband paint her as hysterical, hormonal, mentally unstable. She watched him smile at the camera, the same smile he had given her on their wedding day, the same smile that had convinced her to say yes to everything he ever asked. She scrolled through the comments beneath the video. She probably drove him to it. Pregnant women are impossible to deal with. There are two sides to every story. She is lucky to have such an understanding husband. Classic case of pregnancy brain making women crazy. Her pain was entertainment. Her humiliation was content. Strangers on the internet were deciding who she was, what she deserved, whether her suffering was valid. Based on a 30-second interview with the man who had betrayed her. Carolyn turned off the phone, pressed her hands against her face, let the darkness swallow her. The tears came harder now, shaking her shoulders, making her chest heave. She cried for the marriage she thought she had, for the husband she thought she knew, for the life she had carefully planned that would never happen now. She cried for the naive young woman who had believed every promise Derek made, who had given up her career and her city and her independence for a man who was sleeping with his assistant before their second anniversary. She cried until there was nothing left. Then she sat in the silence, listened to the clock tick, felt the baby move. 1, two, three, four, five, six, 7 strong kicks, fighter kicks, Eleanor refusing to let her mother fall apart completely. "I know, baby girl," Caroline whispered. Her voice was raw, broken. "I know this is not fair to you. You did not ask to be born into this mess. You deserve so much better than a father who treats people like disposable objects." The baby kicked again. 8, 9. "But I promise you something. I promise I will be enough. I will be your mother and your protector and your biggest supporter. I will give you everything Derek is incapable of giving." She reached for the photographs on the desk, found one of herself as a baby, cradled in her father's arms. His smile was radiant. His eyes were full of wonder. "And someday, maybe we will find someone who can love us the way we deserve. Someone who shows up, someone who stays, someone who sees us for who we really are." The baby kicked one more time. 10. Caroline put her hand on her belly, felt the tiny foot pressing against her palm. "I am so sorry I chose wrong. I am sorry I did not see what was right in front of me. But I will choose better from now on. Starting tonight. Starting with us." The clock on the wall read 3:47 in the morning. Outside the window, the first hint of gray touched the eastern horizon. The darkness was beginning to lift. A new day was coming. And for the first time since Derek had told her to get out of her hospital bed, Carolyn felt something other than despair. She felt determination. She felt strength. She felt the first fragile stirrings of hope. The hardest part of this nightmare was not losing Derek. The hardest part was admitting that she had lost herself trying to keep him. But she was still here, still breathing, still fighting, and tomorrow she would start the long journey of finding herself again. 1 week later, everything changed. Caroline sat in her father's study, the same study where she had cried in the darkness, the same room that smelled like leather and old books and safety. But now it was filled with people. Her divorce attorney, a sharp woman named Helen Morrison who had won several high-profile cases against wealthy husbands. A forensic accountant named Patricia Chen who specialized in untangling complex financial fraud. A private investigator who had uncovered evidence Caroline still could not believe. And her parents sitting on either side of her like sentinels. "The situation is more serious than we initially understood," Helen said. She spread documents across the desk, financial statements, court filings, internal emails. "Derek's hedge fund is effectively insolvent. He has been robbing Peter to pay Paul for at least 18 months. $37 million, Patricia Chen added. Her voice was clinical, professional. "That is the estimated total of client funds that have been misappropriated. Possibly more. The shell companies make it difficult to track everything." $37 million. Carolyn had signed joint tax returns for 4 years. She could be held liable for fraud she knew nothing about. Her name was on documents she had never read. Her signature appeared on forms she had signed because Derek told her to. "How exposed am I?" Carolyn asked. "Legally? That depends on how aggressively the SEC pursues this," Helen said. "If they believe you were complicit, you could face civil penalties, possibly criminal charges. But we can build a strong case that you were kept completely in the dark about the fund's operations." "Because I was. Derek never discussed the business with me. He said it was complicated. He said I would not understand. Then we document that. We establish your lack of involvement. We make it clear that you were a victim of his deception, not a participant in it." Patricia Chen slid another document across the desk. Caroline recognized it. The life insurance policy. "There is more concerning news about these policies," Patricia said. "We have discovered 2 additional policies that were not in the original investigation. A total of 4 policies, each for $1 million, all taken out within the same 3-week period 6 months ago. $4 million, all on Caroline, all with Derek as the beneficiary. The room was silent for a long moment. "What are you saying?" Margaret asked. Her voice was tight, controlled. "Are you suggesting that Derek was planning to—" "I am not suggesting anything specific," Patricia said carefully. "But the timing is notable. The policies were purchased shortly after Brittany Cole's pregnancy was terminated, shortly before Derek's financial situation became truly desperate." Carolyn felt cold despite the warm room, despite the fire crackling in the fireplace, despite the blanket across her lap. Her husband had taken out $4 million in life insurance on her, at the exact moment his business was failing, at the exact moment his mistress was no longer pregnant. What had he been planning? "We need to involve law enforcement," Richard said. His voice was steady, but his face was pale. "This is beyond a civil matter now." "Agreed," and Helen said. "I have contacts at the FBI. I can reach out discreetly." The meeting continued for 2 more hours. Strategies were discussed. Timelines were established. Protective measures were put in place. When it finally ended, Caroline was exhausted. Her head ached. Her back hurt. Eleanor was pressing hard against her bladder. But beneath the exhaustion, something else was growing. Clarity. She walked outside after everyone left, sat on the garden bench, the same bench where Derek had promised to love her forever, the same spot where they had exchanged vows 4 years ago. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She answered anyway. "Caroline? It is Brittany." The voice was thin, scared. Nothing like the confident woman who had sat in that wheelchair demanding Caroline's hospital bed. "Why are you calling me? I need to see you, please. I have information that could help you. Things I should have told someone months ago." "Why would you help me? You have been sleeping with my husband for over a year." A long pause, the sound of ragged breathing on the other end of the line. "Because he lied to me too. About everything. About you. About us. About what kind of future we would have together. And I want him to pay for what he did to both of us." Against everyone's advice, Caroline agreed to meet. They sat in a coffee shop 3 days later. A quiet place on the edge of town where no one would recognize them. Brittany looked smaller in person without Derek beside her. Younger, frightened, she wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen. "He promised he would leave you," Brittany said. Her voice trembled. "After the baby was born, he said you would get a settlement, half of everything, and I would get him. We would start fresh. He said he loved me." "And you believed him?" "I was stupid." Tears spilled down Brittany's cheeks. "I was 24 years old when he hired me. I had just moved to the city. I did not have any friends. He was charming and successful, and he made me feel special. He made me feel special too, once. He told me your marriage was over, that you were just staying together for appearances, that you did not love each other anymore." Carolyn thought about the night she had reached for Derek in bed and found nothing but empty space. The morning she had tried to kiss him goodbye and been met with a turned cheek. The slow, grinding erosion of intimacy that she had blamed on herself. "He told me the opposite. He told me everything was fine, that I was imagining problems." Brittany wiped her eyes. "He made me get an abortion. Did you know that? I found out. He said he could not have 2 babies at once. Said it would complicate the divorce. Said we needed to wait until everything was settled." Her voice broke. "I was 3 months pregnant. I saw the heartbeat on the ultrasound, and he made me kill my baby because it was inconvenient." Carolyn felt something she had not expected. Not forgiveness, not sympathy exactly. Recognition. Brittany was a victim too. A different kind of victim. Manipulated in different ways, but a victim nonetheless. "He destroyed both of us," Carolyn said quietly. "In different ways for different reasons, but he destroyed us both." "Yes, he did." "So what information do you have? What can help me?" Brittany pulled out her phone, opened her email, turned the screen toward Caroline. "He wrote to me about the money problems, about the shell companies, about his plans to disappear if things got bad enough. He thought I would go with him. He thought I was stupid enough to believe his lies forever." Carolyn scrolled through the emails. Dates, amounts, account numbers, names of associates. Details of transactions that made even her untrained eye understand the scope of the fraud. Everything the SEC would need. "Why are you giving this to me?" Carolyn asked. "Because I want out. I want away from him. I want to start over somewhere he cannot find me. Somewhere I can build a life that is not built on his lies." "And you think I can help with that?" Brittany met her eyes. For the first time, Caroline saw past the mistress, past the other woman. She saw a scared young woman who had made terrible choices and was desperate to escape the consequences. "I think you are the only one who can. You have resources, connections, a father who knows how to protect people, and you have every reason to want Derek destroyed." Carolyn considered this. The woman across from her, the woman who had slept with her husband, who had helped destroy her marriage, who had taken her hospital bed, and she saw something she recognized. A woman who had been manipulated, used, discarded when she was no longer convenient, just like Caroline herself. "I will talk to my attorneys," Caroline said finally. "If your information checks out, if it is as useful as you say, we will see what we can do." Brittany nodded, her shoulders dropped with relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "I know I do not deserve your kindness. I know I do not deserve anything from you." "You are right, you do not deserve it." Carolyn stood up, gathering her coat. "But Derek deserves what is coming even less. And right now, that is enough for me." That evening, Carolyn sat with her parents at the kitchen table. Brittany's documents were spread across the surface. Emails, bank statements, text messages, everything Derek had tried to hide. Margaret poured tea for all three of them, said nothing. Richard studied the documents. His jaw was tight, his eyes were sharp. "This is enough," he said finally. "Between this and what Graham provided, the SEC will have a complete picture. Derek is going to prison." "Good," Margaret said. Her voice was steel. Caroline said nothing. She was looking at the evidence of her husband's crimes, the paper trail of betrayal and fraud and manipulation. But she was not feeling rage anymore, not despair, not even satisfaction. She was feeling something she had not felt in months: control. For the first time since that horrible night in the hospital, she was not reacting to Derek's actions. She was taking action of her own, making choices, building a case, preparing for a future that did not include him. She found herself making lists in her head, things she needed to do, people she needed to contact, steps she needed to take, making lists, writing plans, taking action instead of reacting. This was who she used to be, before Derek, before the marriage that had slowly eroded her confidence in her independence. She was finding herself again, and it felt like coming home. 3 weeks later, Derek Whitmore collapsed at his office. Cardiac arrest, massive heart attack. The paramedics found him on the floor beside his desk, surrounded by legal documents and FBI subpoenas. They rushed him to Mercy General Hospital, the same hospital where he had kicked his pregnant wife out of her bed, the same hospital where Caroline had walked barefoot down the cold hallway with nowhere to go. Caroline heard the news from her mother. She was 8 months pregnant now, huge and uncomfortable. Eleanor was healthy. The preeclampsia had stabilized with medication and bed rest. She was back living in her own small house near her parents, surrounded by their love and support. "Patricia Whitmore just called your father," Margaret said. Her voice was carefully neutral. "Derek is in cardiac distress. He needs emergency bypass surgery." "And what does that have to do with Dad?" Margaret hesitated. "The cardiac damage is extensive, very specific. The surgeon on call has consulted with specialists across the state. Your father is the only one in the region with the specific expertise to perform the surgery." Caroline felt the world tilt. The room spun around her. Her father, the man who had spent months documenting Derek's betrayal, the man who had watched his daughter suffer, the man who had every reason in the world to want Derek dead, operating on Derek to save his life. What did Dad say? "He said he would be there in 20 minutes. Carolyn found her father in the hallway of their house. He was already pulling on his coat. His car keys were in his hand. "You cannot be serious," she said. Richard stopped, turned to face his daughter. "He hurt me," Carolyn said. Her voice shook. "He hurt Eleanor. He took out life insurance policies on me. He was planning something terrible. And you are going to save his life? Yes. Why would you do that? Richard was quiet for a long moment. The evening light came through the windows, casting long shadows across his face. He looked tired, older than Caroline had ever seen him. Because I took an oath 32 years ago, he said finally. An oath to do no harm, to preserve life whenever I can. Derek's life has value, even if his character does not. That cannot be the only reason. Richard stepped closer, put his hands on Caroline's shoulders, looked into her eyes with the same expression he had worn in all those photographs. Your daughter will grow up someday. She will be old enough to ask questions, old enough to understand what kind of man her father was. I know, I dread that conversation. She will learn about the lies, the affair, the fraud, all of it. Nothing will be hidden from here on. I will not lie to protect Derek's memory. Good, but she will also learn what happened today. She will learn that her grandfather was given a choice. He could have let that man die. No one would have blamed him. The world might even have cheered. Richard's voice was steady, certain, the voice of a man who had made his decision and would not waver. But instead he saved him. Not for Derek, not because Derek deserved mercy, but because that is who we are. That is who the Hayes family is. We do not become monsters to fight monsters. We do not abandon our principles just because it would be convenient. Carolyn felt tears on her cheeks. She did not know when she had started crying. I want to come with you, she said. I need to see this. I need to know how it ends. Richard hesitated. You should stay here. Rest. The baby is fine. I am fine. But I need to see this through. He nodded slowly. Then let us go. They drove to the hospital together. The same roads Caroline had traveled a month ago. The same building where her world had shattered. Derek was in pre-operative when they arrived. Pale as paper, terrified, surrounded by tubes and wires and beeping machines. Patricia clutched his hand, her perfect composure finally cracked. Thomas paced the floor like a caged animal. When Derek saw Richard walk in, his face cycled through a dozen emotions in seconds. Relief, fear, shame, terror, desperate hope. You are going to operate on me. His voice was barely a whisper, thin and reedy. I am. Why? After everything I did to your daughter, after everything I put your family through, why would you save my life? Richard pulled on his surgical cap, snapped on his gloves, met Derek's eyes with perfect calm. Because my granddaughter will grow up knowing that her grandfather saved the man who hurt her mother. Not for him, for her. So she never has to wonder if her family is capable of mercy even when mercy is not deserved. Derek's composure crumbled completely. Actual tears rolled down his cheeks. His body shook with sobs. I am sorry, he said. God, I am so sorry. For everything, for all of it. I am not the one you need to apologize to. Carolyn stepped forward, into Derek's line of sight. He stared at her swollen belly, at the child he had almost abandoned, at the woman he had betrayed in every possible way. Caroline, I do not. Her voice was ice, hard and cold and unbreakable. Do not apologize to me now, not when you are scared, not when you think you are dying. An apology given in terror means nothing. Please, if you survive this surgery, if you get a second chance at life, then you can try to make amends. You can show through your actions that you have changed, but not now, not with words, not like this. She turned away, walked toward the waiting room. Behind her, she heard Derek say something to Richard, something that sounded like thank you, something that sounded like I do not deserve this. He was right. He did not deserve it. But that was not the point. The surgery took 7 hours. Caroline sat in the hospital chapel for most of it. The same chapel where she had sat in her darkness 3 weeks ago. The stained glass windows were dark now, no sunlight to illuminate the colors. Her mother came, sat beside her, said nothing. Rebecca came, her best friend since college, brought coffee and quiet companionship. Even Brittany came, sat in the back pew, did not speak. All of them waiting, all of them wondering, all of them watching the clock tick slowly forward. At 1:37 in the morning, Richard emerged from the operating room, still in his scrubs, face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were clear. He will live. Patricia Whitmore burst into tears. Thomas slumped against the wall with relief. Caroline nodded slowly. She did not know what she felt. Not happy, not simian, not relieved, not disappointed, just done. Did he say anything, she asked, before the anesthesia? He asked me to tell you something. What? Richard paused, considered his words carefully. He said he knows he does not deserve forgiveness. He knows he cannot undo what he did. But he hopes someday, years from now, you might know that his regret was genuine. Carolyn thought about this. The words of a man facing death, desperate, terrified, grasping for any chance at redemption. Maybe, she said finally, someday, years from now, but not today, and not tomorrow. Richard put his arm around her, kissed the top of her head like he had done when she was a little girl. That is enough, he said. For now, that is enough. They walked out of the hospital together, father and daughter, into the cold night air. Above them, the stars were brilliant, 1,000 points of light in the vast darkness. Caroline looked up at them. Thank you, she said quietly, for showing me what mercy looks like, even when it hurts. Mercy is not weakness, Richard replied. It is strength, the hardest kind of strength, and you have more of it than you know. Caroline was not sure she believed him. Not yet, but maybe someday she would. Maybe someday she would understand. Derek survived. His empire did not. The SEC investigation moved with devastating speed. Federal charges came within weeks of Derek's discharge from the hospital. Fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, violation of fiduciary duty. The evidence was overwhelming. Brittany's documents, Graham's testimony, the paper trail that stretched across 3 states and 7 shell companies, Derek's own emails, arrogant and careless, detailing his crimes. His attorneys tried to negotiate, offered cooperation in exchange for leniency, named names, pointed fingers. It was not enough. Derek Whitmore was facing 15 to 20 years in federal prison. His accounts were frozen by the FBI. His properties were seized by federal marshals. His partners turned state's witness one by one, desperate to save themselves from the sinking ship. The Whitmore family fortune, built over 3 generations, evaporated in a matter of months. Patricia Whitmore tried one final time to rally support, called Margaret Hayes at 9 in the morning. Her voice was raw with desperation. "We are family," Patricia said. "Think of Eleanor. Do you want your granddaughter's father in prison? Do you want her to grow up knowing her father is a convicted felon?" Margaret's response became legendary in their family, repeated at dinners and gatherings for generations to come. "My granddaughter's father is whoever Caroline chooses to love next. Derek was just the sperm donor who got lucky. And frankly, Patricia, prison is better than he deserves." She hung up without waiting for a reply. Carolyn went into labor 3 weeks later at 38 weeks. Perfect timing. Her water broke at 2:17 in the afternoon. She was standing in the kitchen of her small house, making lunch when she felt the warm rush down her legs. By 3 o'clock, she was at the hospital. By 6, she was fully dilated. By 7, she was screaming with contractions that felt like her body was trying to tear itself apart. Richard was not in the delivery room. Too much history in this hospital. Too many memories associated with these hallways. He waited outside, pacing, driving the nurses crazy. But Margaret was there, holding Caroline's hand through every contraction, coaching her through every breath, wiping the sweat from her forehead. And Jolene Patterson was there, the same nurse who had found Caroline in the hallway all those months ago, the nurse who had told her the truth when everyone else was lying. "You can do this," Jolene said. Her voice was steady and strong. "You are almost there. One more big push. One more and you will meet your daughter." Caroline pushed. Her body screamed with effort. Her lungs burned. Her muscles shook. And then, suddenly, magnificently, there was crying, not hers, a new voice. A small voice, the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. At 8:43 in the evening, Eleanor Margaret Hayes was born. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 perfect fingers, 10 perfect toes. A rosebud mouth that opened immediately to wail her displeasure at the cold, bright world. Carolyn held her daughter for the first time, looked into eyes that were not yet focused, felt a love so powerful, so overwhelming, that it left no room for anything else. Not anger at Derek, not grief for her ruined marriage, not fear of the future, just love, pure and simple and eternal. "Hello, Eleanor," Carolyn whispered. Her voice was thick with tears. "I am your mommy, and I have been waiting for you my whole life." Derek was not there for the birth. He was under house arrest in a small apartment, awaiting trial, forbidden from traveling beyond the city limits. He sent flowers to the hospital, pink roses, 3 dozen of them, a card that said, "To my daughter with love." Carolyn had them donated to the chemotherapy ward down the hall, patients who actually needed beauty in their lives. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Caroline received nothing from Derek. There was nothing left to receive. The federal government had seized everything. The victims of his fraud would be repaid first, pennies on the dollar from whatever remained. There would be nothing for his ex-wife. But she did not need Derek's money. She had moved into a small house near her parents. 3 bedrooms, a garden in the back where Eleanor could play someday, a kitchen that smelled like the cookies her mother helped her bake. She started working again, consulting for hospital systems, teaching them how to treat patients with dignity, how to protect vulnerable people, how to recognize the signs of abuse and manipulation. The work meant something. It mattered. It was hers. The story that had gone viral faded from public memory, replaced by new scandals, new dramas, new entertainment. But something unexpected grew in its place. Women started writing to Carolyn, hundreds of them, then thousands, from all over the country, all over the world. They shared their own stories: betrayal, survival, recovery, starting over, stories of husbands who cheated and faced no consequences, stories of families who enabled abuse, stories of women who lost themselves in marriages that slowly destroyed them, stories of finding strength they did not know they had. Caroline read every letter, every email, every message. Sometimes late at night, with Eleanor asleep in the nursery, she would sit at her computer and type responses. "You are not alone. You are not crazy. You deserve better. You can survive this." She started a blog, then a podcast, then a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women rebuild their lives after betrayal and financial abuse. She turned her worst moment into her purpose. And every day, she looked at Eleanor, at the daughter who had given her a reason to fight, at the child who had saved her life without even being born yet. "Thank you," she whispered to Eleanor each night, watching her sleep in the soft glow of the nightlight. "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for making me brave." 2 years later, Caroline Hayes stood at a podium. The ballroom was packed. 500 women filled every seat, with more standing along the walls. Survivors of financial and emotional abuse. Women who had been told they were crazy, dramatic, too sensitive. Women who had lost everything and rebuilt from the ashes. Women like her. The lights were bright. The microphone amplified her voice. The cameras recorded every word for those who could not be there in person. "I used to think my story was about a man who betrayed me," Carolyn said. Her voice was clear, strong, certain. "About a hospital bed I was forced to leave. About a mistress I never saw coming. About a husband who turned out to be a criminal and a fraud, and a man I never really knew at all." She paused, let the silence stretch, looked at the faces watching her. But I was wrong. The room was utterly still. 500 women leaning forward, listening. My story is not about Derek Whitmore. It is not about what he did to me. It is not about the lies or the betrayal or the life insurance policies or the fraud. She took a breath. My story is about a woman who found out who she really was when everything was taken from her. A woman who discovered that losing the wrong person meant finding the right version of herself. A woman who learned that she was stronger than she ever imagined, braver than she ever believed, more resilient than anyone gave her credit for. The applause started slowly, one person clapping, then 2, then 10, then the whole room was on its feet, 500 women applauding, some of them crying, all of them understanding. Caroline stepped down from the podium, let herself feel the moment, the triumph, the completion. A woman approached her through the crowd, late 50s, elegant, carefully composed despite the tears on her cheeks. Patricia Whitmore. Caroline's shoulders tensed, prepared herself for an attack, for another accusation, for more of the same manipulation and cruelty. I came to apologize. Caroline waited, said nothing. I knew the whole time about Derek and Brittany, about the money, about everything. Patricia's voice cracked, broke. I protected him instead of you, because he was my son, because I told myself that blood mattered more than right. It is too late for apologies. I know, but I had to say it anyway. Patricia wiped her eyes, smeared her perfect makeup. I was wrong. You were family too. Eleanor was family, and I failed you both in every way that matters. Carolyn looked at this woman, her former mother-in-law, the woman who had enabled Derek's worst behavior, who had called her hormonal and dramatic, who had paid rent for her son's mistress while smiling at his wife across the dinner table. I appreciate you saying that, Carolyn said finally. Can you ever forgive me? A long pause, the question hung between them. I do not know, Caroline said honestly, but I can try, someday, not today, but someday. Patricia nodded, her shoulders dropped with something that looked like relief. That is more than I deserve. Thank you. She walked away, disappeared into the crowd. 2 hours later, Caroline sat at her parents' dinner table. Sunday dinner, a tradition they had started when she moved back home. Every week, no matter what, a chance to gather, to connect, to remember what family really meant. Eleanor toddled across the living room. 2 years old now, all energy and curiosity and determination. She had her mother's stubborn chin and her grandmother's fierce spirit. She fell down, got back up, fell again, got back up again. Richard watched his granddaughter with wonder. She has your determination. She has your stubbornness, Carolyn replied. Same thing, really. The doorbell rang. Carolyn opened it. A man stood there, flowers in hand, a nervous smile on his face. James Henderson, 38 years old, pediatrician at the Children's Hospital downtown. Brown hair going gray at the temples, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He had treated Eleanor's first ear infection 8 months ago, had asked for Caroline's phone number at the follow-up appointment. She had said no. He had asked again at the next appointment. She had said no again. The third time she had finally said yes, because he was patient, because he was kind, because he looked at her like she was a person worth knowing, not a broken woman who needed fixing. Am I too early? He asked. You are right on time. He stepped inside. Eleanor immediately ran to him, arms raised, demanding to be picked up. He obliged without hesitation, lifted her high, made her giggle. Carolyn watched them, her daughter and this gentle man who knew her whole story and showed up anyway, who had read about her viral humiliation and sent a handwritten card saying he was sorry she had been hurt, who did not pressure her or rush her or expect anything from her except honesty. Margaret caught her eye across the room, smiled knowingly. Richard pretended not to notice, but his eyes were soft with approval. Carolyn thought about the woman who had lain in that hospital bed 3 years ago, the woman who was told to leave, who was called dramatic and hormonal, who believed for one terrible moment that she was not worth fighting for. That woman was gone now. In her place stood someone new, someone stronger, someone who had walked through fire and emerged transformed, someone who knew exactly what she deserved, and she was no longer afraid to reach for it. After dinner, Caroline stood at the window. The garden was dark, but fairy lights illuminated the path where she had once exchanged vows with a man who never deserved her. James came up behind her, put his hand gently on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? Everything? Nothing. All of it. He waited. He was good at waiting. It was one of many things she was learning to love about him. I used to think the worst day of my life was when Derek kicked me out of that hospital bed, when I found out about Brittany, when my whole world collapsed around me. And now? Now I think that was actually the best day of my life. She turned to face him, because it was the day I started becoming who I was supposed to be, the day I stopped living someone else's version of my story and started writing my own. Eleanor ran up to them, grabbed Caroline's leg, demanded attention. Caroline picked up her daughter, held her close, breathed in the smell of baby shampoo and innocence. Eleanor had Derek's eyes, the same shade of blue, the same shape, but she had Margaret's smile, Caroline's determination, Richard's stubborn chin. She was a Hayes through and through. I love you, baby girl, Carolyn whispered. Eleanor patted her mother's cheek with a chubby hand. Love mommy. 3 simple words, worth more than anything Derek had ever promised, worth more than all the money he had stolen, worth more than anything in the world. Carolyn looked at James, at her parents setting out dessert, at the small, warm house filled with the people who loved her. Her mother had told her something years ago, something she had dismissed as old-fashioned advice from a different generation. The right person will not make you feel like you have to shrink to fit into their life. They will make room for all of you. Derek had asked her to shrink, to be smaller, quieter, less, to disappear into his shadow and be grateful for the privilege. Eleanor had asked her to grow, to be bigger, stronger, braver, to become the mother her daughter deserved. She chose the one that chose her back. And standing there in the doorway of her new life, with her daughter in her arms and her future wide open before her, Carolyn finally understood. Some things were worth losing everything for. Starting over was one of them. Eleanor looked up at her mother, blue eyes bright, grandmother's smile spreading across her face. And Caroline realized that this was not an ending. This was a beginning, the beginning she had been waiting for all along, the beginning she had earned through pain and growth, and the courage to walk away from everything that was destroying her, the beginning of the rest of her life. Carolyn walked through fire and came out stronger on the other side. Her story reminds us that sometimes losing everything is exactly what we need to find ourselves. If this story touched your heart, if you felt her pain and cheered for her triumph, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what moment hit you the hardest. And if you want more stories like this, stories of strength, survival, and sweet karma, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss another one. Thank you for listening. Until next time.